evaluations before. In this case, we'll talk a little bit about you because it's been a little bit since your most recent evaluation. We'll kind of an updated history. We'll also talk about your court cases and your understanding of them. And then we'll also talk about just your general understanding of court. I will try to make it as little repetitive as possible, but some of it will be repetitive, I'm sure. I am going to take notes while we talk. I am going to write an evaluation and a report that will be submitted to the court. In this case, it will be in both different courtrooms. And the judge and the attorneys in both cases.
Okay.
Because I'm going to write a report, because I'm going to take notes, because I'll let the court know what we talked about and what my findings are. What we talked about is not going to be confidential. That said, this is a voluntary interview, so you can tell me as much or as little as you'd like, keeping in mind that I do, in all likelihood, have to submit an evaluation to the court regardless.
I'm aware of all that.
So even if you... Okay. So I have to go over it with you every time.
Okay.
So now I'm going to ask some questions to make sure that you understand. So am I going to write a report in this case?
Yes.
Okay, and who am I going to send it to?
To 2 separate judges and 2 separate prosecutors. Well, we still
Okay, and
all
who
get,
else?
and my attorneys.
Okay, are you required to participate today?
That's a gray area. Yeah, you said I don't, it's voluntary, but if I don't do it, it could be court ordered even more. So, I guess technically no, but I know from experience I have to.
And is what we talk about today going to be kept confidential?
No.
Okay. All right, so given all that, are you willing to participate?
Yes.
Right. So, and I think your most recent evaluation with, what's going on here? With the court, sorry, give me 1 second. Was a few years ago. Do you remember when it was?
I believe it was last year, I thought.
Was it? Oh, maybe it was, I'm counting it as a few years ago for reasons unknown. I think it was January 2021. Maybe the referral was in 2020.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So?
Yeah.
Okay. And then I don't have any record of evals until I go all the way back to like 2005, 2006. Is that correct as far as you remember it? I don't have anything in the middle there.
Yeah, 2005, I think I got a referral. 2006, I had to do one. And then when I was in the custody Department of Corrections, I believe there was another one, 2008.
And you were, some of those you've been found competent, and some you have been found incompetent. Do you know how many times you've been found incompetent?
To the best of my knowledge, just once, the very first one in 2006.
Okay. Okay, and they sent you to Pueblo, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you remember how long you were there?
I believe 30 days.
Okay. Great. All right, I'm going to kind of breeze through some of your social history since I know that we have some of your records. Where were you born?
Glendora, California.
Glendora, is that what you said?
Glendora, California.
Glendora, California. When did you move to Colorado?
I think 1992 or 1993.
Here, what brought you out here?
My mom got married to a dude named Al.
Did you have any siblings?
I have an older brother, Steve, and a younger sister, Summer.
Okay. All right, and then were you raised by your mom and stepdad?
Predominantly my mom. And then when we moved to Colorado, I was there for a couple of years, so yeah. Is it okay if I eat? I haven't had breakfast yet.
That's fine. That's fine with me.
Thank you.
Do you keep in contact with any of your family members?
No, I do not.
Choice or just by time?
More by choice.
Have you ever been married?
No, I have not.
Okay, any kids?
No, ma'am.
All right, what's your drug and alcohol history like?
I started marijuana and alcohol when I was about 14 years old. That's when I experimented with a couple of drugs. Never really got into the pills, heroin or cocaine. Not for me. I used to smoke marijuana daily. I quit cold turkey in August, like in the middle of August.
This past year?
Yes, August 2021.
Okay.
Alcohol, I also quit at the end of August, but this February I was in Cuba and I did drink alcohol and smoke cigars. So, yeah. Prior to that,
How come you were in Cuba?
I went for regenerative medicine. It was real disappointing and depressing that the doctor said no. Long story short, I got online here in America. I was reviewing regenerative medicine. I looked at Switzerland, Germany, the Netherlands, Dubai, Mexico. Cuba had really good, I guess you call it propaganda. Really good stuff on the internet talking about them, really cheap. I've been to Cuba a couple of times in 2017, so it was, to me, the cheapest route. On the internet it says the Regenerative Medical Institute of Santa Clara. So I go to Havana. I'm there for I think 5 days. I take a 7.5 hour bus ride to Santa Clara. Get to Santa Clara. Go to their Medical Institute of Sciences. They say, go to the hospital next door. I go to the hospital next door. I schedule 3 separate appointments. First appointment, 1 doctor. Next appointment, 2 doctors. Third appointment, their entire orthopedic surgeon team.
Okay.
They tell me that due to COVID, they no longer do it at that hospital. I have to go back to Havana. They tell me, Cia Garcia Hospital.
Is that for your ankle?
No, for my wrist.
Your wrist?
Yeah.
Okay.
Long story short, I got in a fight, I got attacked, my wrist got slit, all arteries, tendons, and nerves were severed. I woke up in the hospital, I went through 6 months of physical therapy, I was in a cast for 6 weeks. I saved up money, I was planning on getting regenerative medicine. So from Santa Clara, I go back to Havana. While in Havana, I go to the hospital the doctors tell me to. Wrong hospital. They tell me to go to somewhere else. Wrong spot. I eventually figure out I'll just Google map hospitals. So I looked at all the hospitals, and there's one called the Orthopedic Science Complex, and I was figuring, well, that's got to be it. I take a taxi there. I talk to 2 doctors, and they're like, yeah, this is the correct hospital. This is where they do the stem cell medicine and all that. I schedule an appointment. I come back the next day later, 3-hour consultation. I speak to the head surgeon, head doctor in charge of the hospital, who's also in charge of the stem cell therapy. He reviews my hand. He believes that the stem cell therapy won't do me no good. and he recommends a surgery, which costs 3 times more than the stem cell therapy. I tried pleading with him about, I told him I came from America. I went from Havana to Santa Clara, back to Havana. I went through all these appointments and all these different hospitals. I'm willing to sign a release. Whether or not it works, I just want to get it done. He says no. So that's that. So then
you came home.
Well, I had about 10 days in Havana to myself. So I went to the beach, I hung out, I went to, I went scuba diving, which was nice.
Okay.
And then I came home.
Okay. That's quite a trip.
Yeah, it turned out to be more of a waste of money. My whole reason was to try to get stem cell therapy. They said no, and it was quite a trip.
Disappointment.
Yes, very disappointing.
Have you ever done, you said you stopped drinking and using marijuana last August. Have you ever done official substance abuse rehab?
Yeah, for supervised release.
Okay. What made you stop drinking and using marijuana in August?
2 reasons. One, for the marijuana, it was just a waste of time and money. I just don't care about it anymore. Everybody I know smokes weed. It's everywhere, and to tell you the truth, I'm kind of sick and tired of it. The alcohol, the last night I went out and drank is when I was attacked and got charged with a felony.
Minus Cuba.
Say that again?
Minus Cuba. Minus using drinking some alcohol. Okay.
When I was in Cuba, I had some Cuban rum and I smoked Cuban cigars.
Okay.
When in Rome.
How far did you go in school?
I'm a recent graduate of SecureSet Cyber Academy. I've gone...
What cyber academy?
SecureSet Cyber Academy.
Okay. Okay. What did you study there?
Cybersecurity.
And did you graduate from high school?
No, I went to all 4 years and I got a GED.
And did you get your GED recently or shortly after high school?
Shortly after high school. I think 2 years after.
How come you didn't graduate?
I was a few credits shy.
And when you were in school, how did you do academically?
I excelled.
Any history of special education or learning disability or ADHD diagnosis?
When I was younger, I was diagnosed with ADHD.
Okay, but none of the others that I mentioned?
None.
How about behaviorally in school? How did you do? Any skipping school, fighting, suspensions, expulsions?
I did get suspended in the 9th grade for getting in a fight.
Where did you go to high school?
Montrose High School.
All right, and then any additional extended education besides the cyber academy that you attended?
I went to college a couple times. First, it was in 2004. I went to Mesa State College. They changed their name to Colorado Mesa University, which I went back to at the beginning of 2011.
Colorado Mesa State University?
Colorado Mesa University, which used to be called Mesa State College.
Okay, and then what did you study while you were there?
The first time I studied physics and chemistry. The second time I went back for fine art and education.
Okay, and how many semesters did you do each time?
The first time was just 1 semester. The second time was 3 semesters.
has your work history been like?
Up until COVID, stable. Constantly had a job.
Okay, what kind of work did you do?
Most recently, I was a scooter charger. But up until COVID, I worked for Bird Scooter, Lime Scooter, and I did that since 2018. And since
Okay.
I also had other jobs. I was a bar manager at the end of 2018 through halfway of 2019. Odd and end jobs here and there, day labor, but the scooter charging was my main job. It paid really good. That's how I went through cybersecurity school.
What did you do? Like go around charging the scooters that are
On the street?
public use?
The Bird Scooter and Lime Scooter. Bird Scooter's gone. Lime Scooter's still here. I would use my phone. I'd look at GPS with the location of scooters that needed to be charged. I would go find them, bring them back to my apartment, plug them in. In the morning, I'd set them out on the street.
Cool. Okay. It's a nice flexible job.
Yeah, it was amazing.
And then anything. So what's the most recent job that you've held? Have you held any jobs since COVID started? I guess I'll say.
Yes. I went back to the scooters, Lime Scooter, which ended, I think, the 28th of January.
Okay.
And during that, and including last year, I was, what would you call that? A temp agency, Denver Event Staffings. Predominantly, I did secretarial work. I just worked this past, I think it was Saturday, at Dick's Sporting Goods. I was just a cashier, giving people water and soda or hot cocoa in the VIP lounge.
So you mean the stadium?
Yeah, Dick's Sporting Goods. The soccer game. It was the opening soccer game for the Colorado Rapids.
Right. Yeah, I got you. I just thought you meant the store, and then I was like, I don't recall them giving out refreshments in the store. Okay. So.
I also do volunteer work. Just
Great.
recently, last night, I was at the Toby Mac concert at the Pepsi Center Ball Arena. I was volunteering for Food for the Hungry. I did it last week also, but there was a fire in a maintenance room, so the show got canceled and rescheduled.
Have you ever received disability funding?
No, I have not received disability funding.
Have you ever been involved in the military in any way?
I choose not to answer that question.
Okay. All right. Tell me about your mental health history. Have you ever been diagnosed with mental illness?
Paranoia, depression, anxiety, PTSD. Yeah.
Okay. What kind of do you think you have mental illness?
I do recognize the depression, anxiety, and the PTSD, that's for sure.
What symptoms have you had? Ever, not necessarily recently.
What do you mean by symptoms? When it comes to all of those, I just deal with it, I'm all by myself, so I still got to go to work, I still got to brush my own teeth, I still got to cook my own food. Excuse me, I live right across the street from the downtown fire department, so whenever their sirens go, it sounds kind of like an air raid, and it lasts for about a minute or two. I don't know if you can
Is that
hear
happening right now?
Yeah, can you hear that? Oh, okay.
We can pause for a second if we need to,
Yeah,
so you
I'm
can
just
hear better.
I'll go ahead. Let's see.
So, what kind of depression symptoms have you had when you feel depressed? What's that like?
I just deal with it, it's just like unhappiness, loneliness, just wondering what's going to happen in the future. I think a lot of people got depressed from COVID, and you know, I graduated top of my class in cybersecurity, and I have yet to get a job. So I got to work these day labor jobs to pay bills and live.
Um, any changes to sleep or appetite when you have mood symptoms?
Not really. I try to get to bed around 10 p.m. to 12. Sometimes I stay up later. Like before I went to Cuba, I stayed up sometimes if because the scooter job starts at 9 p.m. You got to go collect them at 9 p.m. So they have to be released by basically 9 or 10 a.m. depending on if it's a weekday or a weekend. And I try to get a 6 hours sleep in a row, and then sometimes throughout the day I take a 2 or 3 hour nap. But as for my appetite, being in Cuba the past month, I gained some weight. I gotta work on that. So my appetite's pretty good.
Okay. How's your energy level been?
Um, all right, I used to go out every morning and run. I was going to do it today, but I had to do this evaluation. So I wake up in the morning and I'll go. I live downtown near the confluence of the two rivers, and I walk to the river and then I jog or run. 1.4 miles is what Google Maps says. So I go from one bridge to the next, or not the next, but another significant bridge because there's several bridges in between. And I've done that in the morning uh, for several years, except when this first happened. I took about 6 months off.
Right, and when you have symptoms of anxiety or PTSD, what are those like?
Um, I don't know how to say it. I just want to be alone, don't want to deal with people.
Right, any symptoms of mania?
Say that again?
Ever? Any symptoms of mania ever? Not necessarily recently.
Mania? What is mania?
So, like the opposite of depression, basically. So, excessive energy, really good mood, maybe talkative, maybe you start a bunch of projects,
Um,
um, sometimes some reckless behaviors, but usually people have a lot of like get up and go, don't sleep very much, maybe eat a little bit less.
I wouldn't say mania, but prior to COVID, I was always active. Um, uh, how should I say it? I'm frugal and I look for good deals. Prior to COVID, one of the apps I purchased was called InWeGo. It started out you pay $50 a month and you get to go to all these events for free. Free food events, free any concerts, and this other app I have, Jukely, you pay $65 a month and you get to go to 8 concerts a month at various predetermined concert halls. So I went out uh, all the time. My scooter job paid really, really good. I still went out during when I was going to school. I worked the scooter job full time, went to school 8 hours a day minimum, 5 days a week for 12 weeks straight. So I was always active, until COVID, which destroyed everything in my mind.
Any history of psychotic symptoms?
No.
Have you ever seen anything other people don't see?
No.
What about heard things other people don't hear?
Nope.
You mentioned paranoia. Tell me about that.
Especially because of this, I'm paranoid of getting injured again. I'm left hand dominant. My left hand almost got amputated. I bled out. I almost lost my life. It just made me a little paranoid.
Any belief that you have special powers, you've received special messages, people are planting ideas in either direction in anyone's mind?
None.
And how's your mood currently?
Good and hopeful. I sent a couple of messages on LinkedIn and emails to some people I met prior to going to Cuba about getting a job. One of them, Dario, he sent me a link and I applied for lead security engineer. I feel really hopeful about that job. Dario is also a lead security engineer and the job pays good. Excuse me. He recommended the job to me when we first met. We met at a cybersecurity event, and then we met again at another cybersecurity meetup the same day. And so, yeah, I feel hopeful.
What happened to the scooter job?
Bird was removed by the city. Lime changed their entire fleet of scooters that are no longer, you grab them and go charge them. There used to be, how should I say, like 100 scooter chargers. Now I think they have 8 to 10 specific people who have the best ratio for charging scooters and releasing them on time. They switch out the batteries now. The batteries are just like, I don't have nothing to show how large they're, but basically, like this big. I don't know. We'll say 12 inches by 8 inches by 3 inches. And you just go to the scooter and you replace the battery now. But to get that job, you had to have charged a lot more scooters than I did. I only charged like 10 to 20 scooters a day. You had to be in like the 80 or above scooters a day. So I wasn't in their ratio, and I didn't get contacted for that job.
Okay. Any thoughts of hurting yourself or others currently?
None.
Are you taking any medications?
No.
Okay, what kind of mental health treatment have you had? You had the placement at Pueblo. Have you been to Pueblo more than once?
Twice.
Twice. Okay, when was the second time?
Well, in Department of Corrections. I believe it was January 2008. I was there for 1 week.
That was just for the evaluation that you had?
I believe so.
Okay. All right. Have you ever been psychiatrically hospitalized anywhere else?
No.
Okay, and then have you had any psychiatric treatment in the community? Worked with a psychiatrist, see a therapist, gone to group treatment, anything like that?
Not for psychiatry. When I got out of prison in 2008, my parole, it's mandatory that all parolees go to substance abuse classes for, I think, 6 weeks. So I did those.
You said parole,
Yeah.
not probation? Okay. Have you ever had a head injury?
You mean like a concussion?
A head injury of any kind?
I got a concussion when this happened, when I was attacked.
Did you lose consciousness?
Yes, ma'am.
For how long?
Several hours. I woke up in the hospital.
And did they provide any treatment, or were you just under observation for the concussion? I know they were treating your wrist, but
Just under observation. My surgery was at night. Um, I woke up around, I think, 2 a.m. I talked with them. I kept falling back to sleep, passing out. And by 3 in the afternoon or 5 in the afternoon, I was released.
okay. Did you notice any changes to your mental functioning after the concussion? Changes in memory, changes in personality?
I really want to say changes in personality. My memory, I was a little mentally foggy for about 3 months. I slept a lot, at least 12 to 16 hours a day, because I just got out of surgery. I was really injured. I also had 4 broken ribs on one side and a couple of broken ribs on the other side.
Have you ever had a seizure?
No.
Okay. And are you otherwise in good health?
Yes.
So currently, your outstanding medical issue is resolution of your wrist.
Yes, ma'am, that is correct.
Right, I'm going to do a quick mental status exam, and then I'm going to run through the court process with you. Well, you'll run through it with me. We'll do that kind of quickly, and then we'll have a little more time to talk about your cases, okay?
Okay.
More detail. I'm going to say 3 words. I just want you to repeat them after me. Book, kangaroo, and clock.
Book, kangaroo, clock.
Okay, and then try to keep those in your mind, because I'll ask them again in a bit. What is your full name, please?
Kenneth Royal Wheeler.
And what's today's date?
Today is 2022, March 10th, Thursday.
And where are you right now?
I'm in my living room.
Who's the current president?
Joseph Robinette Biden.
And do you know the governor of Colorado?
Jared Polis.
Can you spell the word world for me?
W-O-R-L-D.
And can you spell it backwards?
D-L-R-O-W.
Okay, can you name the months of the year in order, starting with January?
January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December.
And can you do that backwards?
December, November, October, September, August, July, June, May, April, March, February, January.
I'm going to say a couple words and I want you to tell me how they are alike. So for instance, if I said 1 and 7, how are they alike? You would say they're alike because they're both numbers.
They're both
So
odd
red
numbers.
and blue, how are they alike?
They are both primary colors.
Okay, a train and a bike, how are they alike?
They are both modes of transportation.
A shirt and pants, how are they alike?
They are both articles of clothing.
Painting and a statue, how are they alike?
They are both pieces of art.
Okay, a fly and a tree, how are they alike?
They are both parts of nature.
If you found a purse in a store and no one was around, what would you do?
Say that again?
If you found a purse in a store and no one was around, what would you do?
Return it.
Why do some foods need to be cooked?
Because eating them raw can cause sickness.
What would you do if you were lost in a forest?
Find my way back.
And what would you do if you found a stamped and addressed envelope on the street?
Put it in the mailbox.
What does the saying, "Don't judge a book by its cover" mean?
Appearances can be deceiving.
What about the saying, "Don't cry over spilled milk"? What does that one mean?
Don't cry over small things you can't change.
Can you tell me those 3 words that I mentioned earlier?
Kangaroo, book, clock.
Got it. Okay. All right, let's just talk about court in general. So not necessarily pertaining to you, but I'm just going to do a check of your factual understanding of the court process. In court, you have the option to enter several different pleas in Colorado. Do you know what those pleas are?
Guilty, not guilty, nolo contesto, not guilty by reason of insanity.
So for guilty, if you enter a plea of guilty, what are you communicating to the judge?
That you understand that you did something wrong, you are guilty, and you are giving up your rights to an appeal.
And what happens to you next in the court process if you enter a plea of guilty?
You are sentenced. If you enter a plea of guilty, you usually do it for a plea bargain.
And if you enter a plea of not guilty, what does that one mean?
It means that you believe that you are innocent of the charges you are being prosecuted for.
And if you enter a not guilty plea, what usually happens next in the court process?
Trial.
How about no contest? What does that one mean?
To the best of my knowledge, it means that you understand what you did was illegal, but you didn't know it was illegal at the time.
So that one actually means
You're not admitting guilt, you understand it's illegal. Something like that.
basically it means you're not admitting guilt or claiming innocence. You just want to be sentenced.
Oh.
So you're not even necessarily saying that you agree that what you did was illegal. You're just saying, I don't want to talk about it. I'm not going to say I did it. I'm not going to say I didn't do it. I just want to resolve my case. So if you enter a no contest plea, what happens to you next?
You get sentenced?
And it also can be used in a plea bargain. And then not guilty of reason of insanity, what does that one mean?
It means that due to mental issues, you're not guilty because you did not properly understand reality.
And if you enter that plea, what happens next?
I'm not sure, but I think you're placed in the custody of the state, such as Colorado Mental Health Institute, Pueblo, for an indefinite amount of time.
Okay, so that is what happens if you're found insane. If you plead NGI, what will happen first is that they'll have a trial about your sanity. And so if they find you sane, then you'd go forward with a standard trial if you want to pursue that, or potentially, since a not guilty by reason of insanity verdict is what they call an affirmative defense, so you're already saying you did it. So then if they find you're sane, perhaps you end up with something like a plea bargain. But if they find you're insane, then you're exactly right. You're placed in the custody of a mental health hospital, in this case, Pueblo, and you'd be placed there indefinitely until someone like me determines that you could be released. Is that a plea that you would consider in either of your cases?
No. I believe I'm innocent, and I'm not going to take a plea bargain.
So we'll talk about that in a minute. I'm just, in terms of this, because I won't ask any more follow-up questions if you're not considering it.
I'm not considering a plea bargain.
So I'm not talking about a plea bargain. I'm going to ask you about those in a second,
Okay.
or that in a second. I meant if you were considering entering an insanity plea.
No, not at all.
So if you go to court, you basically have a few options to handle your case. You can enter a plea of guilty, or no contest, I suppose, and be sentenced. You can enter a plea of guilty or no contest in the effort to obtain and accept a plea bargain, or you can pursue a trial. If you do attempt to attain a plea bargain, or if someone does, what is a plea bargain and how does it work?
A plea bargain is a deal that is negotiated between the prosecuting attorney and the defense attorney, and it's usually pleading guilty to a lesser charge for whatever deal that's negotiated.
And how would a plea bargain benefit the defendant?
Well, if they're guilty, it could benefit them by getting a lighter sentence. Excuse me.
How does it benefit the court?
It saves them time and money for not going through prosecution in a trial.
Okay, if you'd like to accept a plea bargain, what pleas can you enter?
I believe guilty or no contest.
And what rights do you forfeit if you take a plea bargain?
You forfeit the right to an appeal.
And what else?
You forfeit the right to confront your accuser, cross-examine your accuser.
Okay, and what else?
I don't know. I think that's big. Oh, your right to trial.
Got it. That's basic. The big two are your right to trial and the right to an appeal. The right to cross-examine the accuser would be part of trial, probably. And you have several other trial rights. You'll lose all of them because you'll lose everything under the umbrella of trial, and then you'll lose your right to come back with an appeal later. If you did decide to pursue a trial, what happens at a trial? How does a trial work?
Well, it depends if it's a bench trial or a jury trial. A bench trial is decided by the judge. A jury trial is decided by a jury. If you go to a jury trial, you first have to have jury selection. I can't remember the French word for it or the Latin word.
Voir dire. Voir dire is the
Voir dire, yeah.
term.
And then you pick your jury. And then after that, you go with opening arguments. Then you have witness testimony, evidence presented, closing arguments, and then the jury decides.
Right. In a trial, who is proving what to whom?
The prosecution is proving guilt beyond a reasonable doubt to the jury. The defense is presenting reasonable doubt to the jury, or innocence.
Okay, and in a trial, are you presumed innocent or guilty before the trial begins?
By law, you are innocent till proven guilty.
In a courtroom, what is the role of a judge?
To protect the rights of the defendant and make sure procedure is properly followed.
Okay, and what else is the judge responsible for?
Ruling on motions and objections.
Okay.
And maintaining order in the court.
And one other primary responsibility, especially in a bench trial.
To review the facts and make a judgment based upon the facts.
And then what do they do? Once they've made the judgment.
They issue their ruling.
And then after they've issued their ruling, then what?
If it's not guilty, the defendant walks free. If the ruling is guilty, then the defendant will go to sentencing.
What is the job of the prosecutor in the courtroom?
To prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt.
And what verdict is the prosecution hoping for?
Guilty.
And how about your defense attorney? What's the main job of your defense attorney?
To protect the rights of the defendant and use a proper legal strategy to facilitate a not guilty verdict from the jury.
Use a proper what strategy?
Defense strategy.
What verdict is your defense attorney hoping for?
Not guilty.
Right, and what's the job of the jury in the courtroom if you have a jury trial?
To acknowledge and review evidence and witness testimony presented to them and decide on a verdict. If there's beyond reasonable doubt of guilt, they're to find the defendant guilty. If there's any doubt, they're supposed to find the defendant not guilty.
Who's the defendant in your case?
I am.
Right. And then let's talk about your attorneys briefly, and then I'm going to go through we'll pull up your cases and we'll talk about those. What is your general opinion of attorneys, if you have one?
They get paid too much.
Okay. And that's true for public defenders too?
Their caseload is too much.
And do you know who your attorneys are?
In the misdemeanor case, Clark Kent Cooper. Oh, excuse me. Oh. In the felony case, Christopher Smallwood.
Okay. Have you talked about your case with those attorneys, your cases with those attorneys?
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything you are uncomfortable talking about with your attorneys?
No.
All right. How are you getting along with Mr. Cooper?
Good.
And what about Mr. Smallwood?
We're getting along okay. He just kind of tossed the that case onto this evaluation because the evaluation was pending.
Did you have confidence in your attorneys?
I have confidence in Clark Kent Cooper. I have not discussed my case in depth with Christopher Smallwood to state whether I have confidence or I do not have confidence.
Okay. And it's my impression that you had attempted to fire Mr. Smallwood, so it doesn't look like that has taken effect. Will you tell me about that?
I spoke to him on the phone prior to meeting him, and I asked him questions, and his answers weren't correct. I looked up the same questions on the internet, and I just wrote some motions to the court.
Okay. Motion saying what?
One
Motion
of them,
saying.
I don't know if I'm allowed to discuss defense strategy without my lawyer present, but one of the main ones was, is Colorado a stand your ground state? At first, Christopher Smallwood told me no. I looked it up online. It is. I wrote a letter to the judge asking him if it is or not. And then in a one-on-one meeting, he eventually did say, yes, Colorado is a stand your ground state.
Is it your impression that Mr. Cooper is trying to do a good job for you?
Yes.
Okay, why do you say that?
He's articulate, and he's actually filing motions to get information.
And what about for Mr. Smallwood?
This case really hasn't gone anywhere, so I don't know yet.
In either case, what is it? What is important to tell your lawyer?
The truth, facts.
Okay. Are there any other ways that you can be helpful to your lawyer?
Review the information they asked me to review. Excuse me.
Okay, if your attorney, either one of them, made a decision or had a plan about your case that they thought would benefit you, would you listen to their advice, take it under advisement?
Yes.
Do what they said? What would you do?
I would review the information. I would also look up whatever I could online and go from there.
And what will you do if you disagree with your attorney about how to handle your case?
Talk it with him. Discuss it.
For instance, if your attorney thought that a plea bargain was in your best interest and you don't want to take a plea bargain, what would you do?
I would tell him. I tell him that I don't believe in taking a plea bargain for something I believe I'm innocent of, and prepare for trial.
How are you expected to act in the courtroom?
Proper.
Okay. What do you think would happen if you disrupted proceedings or moved around in the courtroom without permission, talked over the judge, anything like that?
I could be removed from the courtroom.
Okay. Anything else?
I believe there's a term called contempt of court.
Okay, have you been to prison before?
Yes.
Okay, how many times?
Twice.
Okay, have you been on parole both times?
In the feds, it's not called parole, it's called supervised release.
And have you been on probation before?
Yes.
And are you familiar with the terms and conditions of probation or supervised release? You understand how that works?
Yes.
What kind of things do you usually have to do while under supervision?
No police contact. If you have any contact with law enforcement, you gotta report it. You gotta maintain gainful employment or seek gainful employment. You gotta have somewhere to live, contact information. If they require classes, you gotta do your classes. If they require UAs, you gotta do your UAs.
All right, let me pull up your cases here. So I'm going to start with your misdemeanor matter. 1 second. Oops. This thing is not cooperating with me. Okay. So in your misdemeanor matter, what are you charged with?
I think one is interfering with law enforcement, illegally entering a cop car, and I think some type of third-degree assault. I can't remember exactly.
Okay. Here's what I have. So I have assault 3, no or reckless cause injury. And then I also have resisting arrest and obstructing a peace officer.
Okay.
And that's what I got. Okay, in those cases, do you know what level misdemeanors they currently are?
I believe they're class 3 misdemeanors.
Okay, and I have, I think, 1 and 2. Yeah, so assault, the assault 3 is a first-degree misdemeanor. The other 2 are second-degree misdemeanors. If you were convicted of a first-degree misdemeanor, what is the potential sentence for that?
I'm not sure. I know any amount of probation, but I think it could be 18 months in county jail.
Yeah, you got it. Right, and then your other matter, what is the charge in that case?
Class 5 felony menacing.
Okay. Okay, and in that one, if you were convicted of a class 5 felony, what's the potential sentencing range that you could do?
Any amount of probation or 1 to 3 years in the Department of Corrections with 2 years of parole.
Okay. All right. 1 second, I'm going to pull up the actual case. Do you know what offers have been on the table so far?
Which case?
So, in my experience, they'll probably combine them if you were sentenced. But in the, let's see here. So I'm not sure exactly which case this is referring to. There was one potential plea that has to be the misdemeanor, but maybe not. That obviously you didn't accept, and I don't know, the offer I assume is now void. But if you pled guilty to assault, then and they removed the extraordinary risk component, then they were going to offer 60 days in county jail, probation, and then a fine.
Yeah, I think I heard of that. And the fine was dependent on if the officer had to pay medical bills or the state had to pay medical bills.
Right. Okay. So let me pull up your misdemeanor case first. Give me 1 second. Sorry, give me 1 second to flick through here and pull up the actual stuff while we talk about it. It is exceedingly long. Okay. Okay, here we go. All right, so what is your understanding of the allegations against you in the misdemeanor case?
My understanding is that,
So not your version, I'll ask you that in a second, but what are they accusing you of?
they're accusing me of resisting arrest, and causing injury to a cop in the process of resisting arrest.
Okay, so what I have in a bit more detail is that officers, so this was in June 2020, were attempting to break up a protest, clear protesters from an area, and when the officers got there, they said that you attempted to get into a police vehicle that was blocking traffic. Officers came to the location, attempted to arrest you for violation of the curfew order, and then attempted criminal trespass of the vehicle. Then they said that you resisted arrest at that time. You had a small hatchet sticking out of your backpack, and one officer was knocked to the ground during a resistance, causing a fracture to his ankle. So then they transported you, let's see here, to Denver Health Medical Center. They said that you appeared to be using drugs at the time, an abrasion under your eye. And at the time, they had different charges than you have right now.
Yeah, it started out as a curfew violation. The curfew violation got dropped. They charged him with some felonies. Those got dropped, and now being charged with misdemeanors.
Right, and I don't see the weapon possession anymore either. I don't think. Okay, so are you aware that those are the full description of the incident and accusations?
Yes.
Does that sound right to you?
That sounds correct.
Okay. Well, in that one, what is your version of events?
I don't think I'm supposed to talk about that without my lawyer, but to the best of my knowledge, the curfew that was imposed was unconstitutional and is not allowed.
in your felony matter, second, let me pull up the police report for my case. What are they accusing you of in this case?
They're accusing me of menacing somebody with a weapon. Real or simulated.
So the short story that I have on this one is that in August 2021, you were in front of a view house causing some sort of disturbance and threw a drink at the victim's face and then pulled out a knife and menaced the victim with the knife. And then you were taken into custody and charged with felony menacing.
No, that is incorrect. I was live streaming outside of the view house, and a black cop told terrorists to call me a blue-eyed nigger and spit on me. Then they spit on me, called me a blue-eyed nigger, assaulted me, and stole my bike.
Okay, so we're go through that again. So a black cop came up to you?
A black cop told other people who were there to spit on me and call me a blue-eyed nigger. Then people spit on me, called me a blue-eyed nigger, and assaulted me and stole my bike.
Is what I recounted, does that sound familiar to you in terms of the accusations against you?
Yes.
Even if you don't agree with them, they sound familiar.
Yes.
I'm trying to see if there's more detail. Give me 1 second. Okay, and then tell me what happened to your wrist.
If you don't mind me asking why.
I'm curious if it's related.
Oh, a cop wearing a white privilege t-shirt smashed me in the face with a brown whiskey bottle, started a huge brawl, and eventually I was hit with a skateboard, I was hit with rocks, stones. I was tackled to the ground, and a girl came over my right shoulder with a box cutter and slit my wrist. It was all on camera. I've called the FBI. I've made reports. I am not under investigation is what they said, but the FBI did state there is an ongoing investigation.
Did this happen?
When did this happen? I believe it was June 21st, Sunday, 2020.
Okay. So that's, let's see here. That's afterward. When was the misdemeanor matter?
3 weeks prior.
Okay, it looks like that's right around there. The misdemeanor matter has a funny date in here. Let's see. So I have So let's see here. This case is aggravated. Oh yeah, so 6/1/2020. So they didn't write this report until, or they write about it talking about when it's assigned to a different unit on 6/30/2020. That's the date I was remembering. Okay, so you have the misdemeanor matter. You're clearly on bond, and then you have this thing with your wrist.
Yes. It wasn't a misdemeanor at that time. I was
No, it was a felony, wasn't it
no.
initially?
It was a municipal offense. It was a curfew violation. I didn't get charged with the felony until after the wrist injury.
Okay. Then it got dropped back down to misdemeanor.
Yes, ma'am, that is correct.
Did the wrist part have anything to do with it being jumped up to a felony, or was that just timing?
In the hospital, they said I was going to be charged with a felony to cover up the police involvement in my injury.
All right. So in your misdemeanor matter, what is the evidence that could be used against you?
Statements and testimony. We are still waiting for body camera footage.
And do you think the evidence against you in that case is strong or weak?
Weak.
Okay, why?
There's conflicting statements, and
Okay.
they're not producing the body camera footage, which a prosecuting attorney stated there was.
If a cop, specifically the cop who broke his ankle, testified, how do you think that would be perceived in court?
I don't know how it would be perceived. It would be my word versus his. If I read the report correctly, that cop wasn't in a scuffle with me. He was just in the area and he twisted his ankle. One report states that another cop fell on him and that's how he twisted his ankle.
Okay. If you were to proceed to a trial in that case, what do you think your chances of winning the trial would be?
Good.
Really?
Good.
Okay. Right. In your felony matter, what is the evidence that they could use against you?
There is a witness video of me being assaulted and me standing my ground in defense of myself and my rights.
And who has this witness video?
I have a copy. My lawyer has a copy. The prosecutor has a copy.
And you have viewed it,
Yes, I have.
and it shows what you think it shows.
Yes.
In that case, do you think that what kind of evidence could they? So that's the evidence on your behalf. What kind of evidence could they use?
I have no idea. I mean, they could use any evidence. If the judge allows any evidence in, then the judge allows it in.
And what do you think the chances of you winning a trial in that case are?
Absolute.
Right. In your misdemeanor matter, how do you plan to resolve your case? Like, what's your preference?
If they don't drop it, then go to trial. I'm not responsible for the actions of others.
And by the actions of others, you mean
There was a large group of
implementation
protesters.
of the curfew or the shoving?
There was a large group of protesters.
Okay.
There were multiple cops detaining multiple people. I am not responsible for someone else's actions causing someone else to twist their ankle.
Is there any plea bargain that you would consider? Is there anything that would sway you?
No. I mean, the fact that it went from a municipal offense that got dropped, then it went up to a felony that got dropped, in my mind proves that they're just, they don't have nothing. And they just don't want to let go of it.
Okay. What if they offered an exceptionally good plea bargain, like
Like,
like a short duration of probation or something like that? No time, no incarceration.
it would have to be like maybe 30 days of unsupervised release for petty offense disorderly conduct.
In your felony matter, what is your plan to handle that case?
Say that again?
How do you plan to handle your felony matter?
What is my plan?
Like, how would you prefer to resolve that case? What's your plan?
Oh, all the way to trial. I mean, the witness has a video and he's recording it on his phone, and it shows me being assaulted repeatedly. So, yeah, and Colorado is a stand your ground state. The witness repeatedly assaulted me on video, so that right there is open and closed to me, 100%.
Okay. Is there a plea bargain you would consider in that case?
Absolutely not. I believe the alleged victim is to be prosecuted for sexual assault for spitting on me, hate crime for calling me a blue-eyed nigger, and assault for assaulting me, and theft for stealing my bike.
In either case, if your attorney advised differently, like let's say in your felony matter, if your attorney said, I think you're going to lose at trial, I would advise a plea bargain. I think we can get you 60 days. What would you do?
Tell him no, and if all else fails, get a new attorney.
And how about in your misdemeanor matter, if your attorney advised something different?
Probably the same way, due to the fact that the government is withholding evidence that I believe proves my innocence, such as the body camera footage.
if new evidence came to light that made you think you might lose at trial, what would you do?
Go from there. Discuss it with my attorney.
That's all that I have for you, Mr. Wheeler. Just take a quick look. I have some questions I want to ask you again, but mostly I think that's it. So do you, sorry, let me get back to the right page here. Do you recall what your misdemeanor charges are?
Third degree assault, injury, resisting arrest, and something else. I'm sorry.
Okay. The last one is obstructing a police officer.
Yes, obstructing a police officer.
And how much time did you serve in the misdemeanor matter?
What do you mean? How much time did I
If
serve?
you were,
How much?
I realize that in the real world, the likelihood you'd serve consecutive sentences is small, but if you were convicted of the misdemeanor matter, how long of a sentence does that level of misdemeanor carry?
Any amount of probation to a maximum of 18 months in county jail.
And then I have one last question. Are you aware that if you pursue a trial, not trying to talk you out of a trial, I genuinely don't care, that's not my role here, but if you pursue a trial, the DA can continue amending your charges up until trial?
Yes, but to the best of my knowledge, he cannot throw in certain charges due to the fact those have already been dismissed.
Okay. All right, I think that that's all the questions that I have for you. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you were expecting to?
No, I think we covered it all.
Okay, I'm gonna take a very quick look here at the information that I got from Mr. Cooper and make sure there's not anything I wanted to ask you about. You mentioned to Mr. Cooper that you had extensive legal experience, including arguing a case in front of the Supreme Court. Would you tell me about that?
I would not say I've had extensive legal experience, nor did I state I argued a case before the Supreme Court. My federal appeal went all the way up to the United States Supreme Court. I piggybacked on a Supreme Court case known as Alonis versus USA. It was for, my case was 2 counts of Title 18 875C, Interstate Threatening Communications, which Alonis also was appealing to the United States Supreme Court. I did write my own amicus curiae briefs, which means friend of the court, where I had questions pertaining to my case that I would like the Supreme Court to answer, and the Supreme Court did answer my inquiries. I did not argue anything before the Supreme Court. I only wrote letters to the Supreme Court. And some of those letters received a response in the official opinion issued by the United States Supreme Court.
Mr. Cooper said that it was your belief you were charged by, that you had been informed by the judge at one point that there wasn't evidence on your charges and it should be dismissed in some sort of hearing. Would you tell me about that?
Can you repeat that? What do you mean?
So he said that you informed him, or said at one point, maybe it wasn't to him directly, that you had been informed in court of some kind, a hearing by a judge, something like that, that there wasn't evidence on your charges and the cases should be dismissed, that you were informed of potential dismissal by someone.
That was when it was a felony.
Okay.
I don't remember the judge's name, but yeah, that's when it was dismissed as a felony. And then, like a month or two later, it was re-prosecuted under different misdemeanors.
Okay.
And I'm not exactly sure. That's the question I had for him, was are they allowed to re-prosecute me as a misdemeanor charge? Excuse me. When my felony charge.
My understanding that it wasn't that one had been dismissed entirely and you were like free and clear and then they added charges. It was my understanding from reading the court material that the felony matter had been dropped down to a misdemeanor matter. So it sounds like that's not what your understanding was.
Yeah, those were the questions I had. Because I had questions about dismissal with prejudice, dismissal without prejudice. And so,
Okay.
yeah, that was a question I had. So maybe there's just misunderstanding between us.
This is making me think of another question. So you clearly want to pursue trial in both your cases. If your attorneys are in agreement with that, or whatever, that's the course that you decide to pursue. While pursuing trial, if your attorneys, either of them, think that a different method, a different strategy would be more successful in a trial, how would you handle that?
I would review the strategy. I would look online, I would ask other lawyers, and go from there, Every lawyer has a different strategy. I've learned that. Every lawyer says that. So I would just do what I could to understand the strategy and make a proper decision with my lawyer.
For instance, if, say, your attorney doesn't want to use stand my ground as a defense, wants to use something else, and that seems to the attorney like it's going to result in a better trial outcome, would you consider that? Is there a potential that you would follow your attorney's advice and do that? Would you do a different strategy?
That is a potential possibility. I mean, ultimately, it's his, how should we say, presentment to the jury. So if the lawyer decides not to present stand your ground to the jury based on his belief that there's some other presentment of facts, laws, rules, evidence that would work better, then obviously that's what's up.
Mr. Cooper, I think, although it could have been Mr. Smallwood, said that in trying to discuss the case with you, he had some difficulty discussing it because you continually told him that you didn't remember the case, that you had been drugged, and therefore couldn't talk about the facts of the case with him.
They used ketamine on me,
Ooh.
which the government, the police, they injected me with ketamine. So my recollection of the evening is not complete.
For the misdemeanor case.
Yes, and that's in the report also. They say they relaxed me with ketamine, which, to the best of my knowledge, is first-degree attempted murder. To give someone a narcotic, there has to be a doctor to prescribe the narcotic, and the doctor has to be fluent with my medical history to make sure I'm not allergic to such narcotics. There was no doctor present to administer the narcotic. To the best of my knowledge, ketamine is a controlled substance, a narcotic, and there was no licensed medical doctor present to do that. It was done by a EMT, and to the best of my knowledge, that's actually an illegal act of first-degree attempted murder. I wrote reports to the FBI on that. I have not been contacted back.
Was your statement about that interfering with your ability to provide information about your case to Mr. Cooper?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
I've asked him valid questions, and he even filed for transcript records, because I told him that in my very first video arraignment, the prosecuting attorney stated there were, in fact, body camera footage from several of the police officers. And now they're saying they don't have them. Well, at first they existed, and now they don't, so that's a violation of my due process rights, and I believe it's Giglio-Brady Rule 16 or 13, the evidence. You know, I have the right to a proper discovery.
Okay, there's two more things in here that I wanted to check with you, and then I think I legitimately am done. So he also had said that you had mentioned that you had an occupational therapist or physical therapist of some sort for your wrist, who was also the therapist for the police officer, and you told him that that therapist said that the police officer knew that you weren't responsible and was just drumming up charges. Would you tell me about that?
Yeah, I did my occupational therapy at Denver Health. My therapist, I believe her name was Katie, and she worked in the same office, the same room that everybody who has to do physical therapy, occupational therapy. She told me that the cop whose ankle got twisted did his therapy in the same unit, the same occupational therapy, physical therapy area, and that he talked about how I wasn't the one who caused him to twist his ankle, and the one who did it got away because several of the other people in the protest ran away, except I was the one who was arrested, and I'm the one being charged. Yeah, I motioned for her to be a witness.
And I think one last thing. So your prior attorney, last time you were referred, said that you reported to court in a bunny suit.
No. That was a virtual hearing. And I wore a Spyro the Dragon onesie. That's what I wore for the day. So it wasn't a bunny suit. Yeah, and it was a virtual hearing. And it was more of an FU to that guy. I can't remember I think it was Nicholas Weber. We didn't get along. I fired him and decided to go pro se. And then after that is when the judge dropped the felony charges.
just take one quick, I think that was it, but I'm just taking one quick glance here.
And that was after I went through 2 competency evaluations pertaining to this matter.
Pertaining to the one with Nick Weber?
Yes.
I only have one. Did he file twice?
Yes.
Did he file for a second opinion?
Yes.
Okay. So I can't see the second opinion. I can only see the original one that's court-ordered by the state, not the second opinion. They only give us those if you were found, so I assume you were found competent at the second opinion as well?
Yes, ma'am, that is correct.
So if you were found incompetent at the second opinion, then I get the report. Because then presumably you'd have to do some sort of restoration treatment. However, because you didn't, it never shows up in our files, so I can only see the one. Okay. Okay, I also have from Mr. Cooper that, let's see here. You had reported that you knew the director of the CIA, you'd saved a variety of people's lives, and that the judge on your case had also called you a blue-eyed nigger, much like what you were reporting for your felony matter.
I believe, yeah, that has occurred. Not, Judge William J. Martinez, a federal judge, did call me a blue-eyed nigger. That's recorded by the feds. Anybody can commit due diligence and contact the 10th District or the FBI. I filed numerous complaints on that. So, yeah.
Okay. That's just such a specific phrase for more than one person to use.
Yeah, I've been called that lots in my life. People know it, and people continue to call me that.
Why that specifically, do you know?
They don't like me.
All right, that's legitimately all I have to ask you about. So is there anything else that you want me to know, or any questions you have for me before I let you go?
I believe I'm competent to proceed. I understand the proceedings, and you know the fact that I'm able to inform Clark Kent Cooper that we need the transcripts because the first DA did say there was body camera footage. I believe proves that I'm aware of the charges against me and how to facilitate a proper defense.
So I will have your evaluation submitted by tomorrow. For your hearing, the hearing date that I have is March 21st. Does that sound right to you?
Yes, ma'am, that is correct.
Okay, and so that should give it time to make it over there for your hearing, and your attorneys will be able to review it. If I recommend that you are incompetent to proceed, and the judge agrees, then you will do some form of restoration treatment.
What is that?
So that would be like what you did at Pueblo, but it doesn't have to be inpatient. They have outpatient restoration. You'd meet with somebody, and then probably me would come back and meet with you again in 90 days and do a briefer assessment and see if you were ready to return to court and submit another evaluation. If I recommend that you are incompetent and the judge does not agree, then you'd go forward. They also could order a second opinion, though in my experience, it's unlikely for them to order a second opinion if my initial finding is that you're incompetent. They typically only do that. Like in this case, if I found that you were competent, they could order a second opinion and you'd have another evaluation. So if I recommend that you are competent to proceed, they could agree with that and go forward with your case. They could order a second evaluation, which you would have and could find you incompetent, and then you'd go forward in the case, or could find you competent as well, and then it would be like what happened in early 2021. So that's kind of the potential paths that you'll have. I still have a few more background documents to review for you, and then I will come to a conclusion and write everything up, and then submit it, and then you will find out what happened at the hearing on March 21st. Or actually, you will find out what will happen at the hearing on March 21st. They'll review everything and decide what they'd like to do.
Okay.
Whether that's adopt my finding or seek a second opinion or something along those lines.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions for me about any of that?
May I know your opinion?
So I don't have my finalized opinion yet, so I'm not going to tell you. So I don't want to tell you that it looks good and then have you be surprised in court on the 21st. And I don't want to tell you that I'm probably going to find you incompetent and then review a few more things and realize that that's not what I'm going to find at all. I will say I have no concerns about your factual knowledge at all.
Thank you.
Okay. So that's all that I have. If you are found incompetent, there is a possibility that I will be your subsequent evaluator, even if you are found incompetent by a second opinion. Because if you do restoration, it comes back to our department for the subsequent evaluations. If not, then good luck with your cases.
Thank you.
Okay. So thank you very much, Mr. Wheeler. Thank you for attending. I appreciate it more than you know. And I wish you luck. So thank you very much.
You have a beautiful day. Thank you.
Thank you, you too.